Hello, and welcome to another episode of Dragon Dreams. My name is Ivan, and today I'm going to be talking about old school role-playing. And see, the thing is that I think there's an impression today that a lot of people have that like first edition and old school, like back stuff they're doing in the 80s and so forth, was not about role-playing, and I'd like to debunk that a bit. A lot of things were subject to interpretation, and the way they set it up, they always said in the old days, is this is your game. If you're the dungeon master, you can do what you want with things, and you can do it your way, and it's up to you to interpret things. The old adventures were actually very sparsely and tersely written. They were very open-ended. They often just had details of who's where, there's orcs over here, or there's a farmer's house, and this is what's in the farmer's house, or whatever it is. And what that means is that the reason why they did that is because they expected people to interpret things. It wasn't you're just supposed to have the player characters just go through an obstacle course or a maze or whatever and just beat up monsters and take treasure. Sure, that could be what you're doing. That could be the activity for the evening, if that's what everybody wants, but it might not be. And here is an example of a classic adventure module from the early 80s that I'm running right now, in which much of what we're doing is role-playing. I mean, sure, there's monster fights, but there's a lot of role-playing in it. And the module is Palace of the Silver Princess, Module B3. It was for BX, Back Me D&D, sometimes called Basic D&D, which is a little bit of a misnomer, but that's another subject. The plot of Palace of the Silver Princess is that there's this Kingdom of Haven, and the dwarves there delved so deep that they found this ruby that they offered as a gift to the princess. And it turns out this ruby is actually the eye of a demon named Arak, and that allowed Arak to come through into our dimension and imprison the princess and ensorcel the whole land so that it's surrounded by this red ruby mist, or rather ruby light, or ruby glow, and anything that is not evil gets killed in it. But fortunately, there's this being called the Protector who opens an aisle for you through the ruby light so that you can get to the palace and save everybody. And as I was thinking about how I wanted to run this, see, it's very open-ended. It just says this is what's in these rooms. There's these monsters here. Occasionally it'll tell you something about, this particular character will do this or something. But it doesn't really tell you how you as a DM should run the adventure. It just says what's there, what will happen, where are their traps, where are their monsters, what's their treasure. And it will give you information about, this room, it belongs to this particular character or something. This room belongs to, the alchemist or something like that. And basically, way I thought about how the monsters and the bad guys, because not just monsters, there's also like clerics of Arak. They're there for to oversee a ritual that's about to happen to permanently bring Arak all the way through, and because he's sort of not quite through. He's like, his eye is in our dimension, and that gives him power over this one kingdom, but he's not actually totally manifested. There's a whole bunch of different things. There's bandits on the random encounters table. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And I thought about this, and I thought, wait a second. If the PCs only came through because this immortal, the Protector, opened an aisle for them through the ruby light so they could get to the palace without being killed, because the ruby light kills all non-evil creatures, the monsters and the evil clerics and whatnot, the evil humans and so forth that are in the palace, would logically think that the PCs are evil and must be there to join Auric's forces. Now, they may also imagine that they might be, kind of unruly and want to just do their own thing and just loot the palace, and they might want to bring them under their control, and basically whip them into shape as, proper servants of Auric, which they are, right? So there might nevertheless be friction. There might be a sense of, if the orcs or certainly the clerics, of wanting to just dominate these people or whatever. But what that's led to is it's led to a lot of role playing, which has been really neat. So it's like they met the clerics of Auric, and the clerics of Auric were like, "Oh, great! It's great that you're here. Since you're here, this is what we're doing. We're gonna, conquer the world and take it over in the name of Auric, and you can be a part of it. You're going to be part of the whole power, and you're going to get power and wealth and everything for serving him and all this kind of stuff." And they're totally baffled that the PCs are good guys, right? And in fact, one of them just honestly, completely sincerely hands a robe and a holy symbol of Auric to the cleric and says, "Cleric, you must doff your robes of this inferior deity you worship. Surely you will now don the correct raiment and become one of our order. We'd like to, offer you membership in our order now," and all this kind of stuff. And of course, the cleric declined. But it led to some really neat role-playing where there's a lot of banter and stuff going on between the party and the bad guys. It allows the party, if they're wounded or whatever, to maybe not consider, just not engaging with them. Maybe they just say something to fob them off or something. Maybe, I don't know what they're going to do next. I don't know whether they're going to manipulate these people or whether they're going to, pretend to go along with it to gain some advantage. There's so much you could do. It's so dynamic. There's so many possibilities. And so it's not just about fighting and taking treasure. I think that's a common misnomer. It's all how you run it. It's another DM might run this in a totally different way, in which the bad guys just attack you on sight because you're just obviously, the good guys or something. Different people may run it in very different ways. And so I wanted to mention that because I hope that debunks this myth about old school, and I think it may make people think twice about maybe trying out old school and seeing if you like it. It is true that it's more deadly. Your characters can die more easily. That was normal to us back in the day. It is true you have less hit points, but I find that actually, in some sense, that makes the role playing much better. I mean, if you're only have so many hit points, it's you don't want to get into any more fights than you have to, so the role-playing becomes, part of the game where you're really having to figure out how to interact and everything. And, there's something to be said, actually, for being in danger as being a driving force in role-playing. I mean, if you don't have much motivation, if you're so powerful that nothing motivates you, then, it might be less interesting than if your life depends on how you're going to interact with the characters that you meet. So there have also been a number of exchanges where they actually, the way I decided to change things up a little bit, and I decided that there are there's a secret door in the module that opens to nowhere. It says there's just red light behind it. I thought, well, that's kind of lame. You find a secret door at the edge of the palace, and so I decided that there's this temple to the Protector that's sort of just outside of the palace, and that some refugees have taken up positions in there, and that the Protector is able to just put keep the red ruby glow away from her temple, and also create another aisle to the palace, to just give some refugees a chance to escape, maybe, or something. And the PCs found the secret door and went out, and immediately, the guards at the temple see the secret door opening, and they're like, "Halt! In the name of the princess! Declare yourselves! Who are you? Whatever. We'll shoot you with arrows. If you come any closer, whatever." And like the BCs have to adjust to that. Like, why are these people reacting this way? The PCs are here to help. Like, how come the good guys are so afraid of them? Well, the answer is because their palace is being invaded by, bad guys, and only evil people can get through the red ruby glow. And since they don't know that these people are good, they're logically assuming the worst. They have to protect themselves, So I think it's really made things interesting, and I just want to say, you may, if you haven't tried Old School, like maybe Old School Essentials, which is very similar to the game that I'm doing, which is BX D&D, or Basic Fantasy, or one of those kind of things from OSR, or just get some of the old rule books and try out Old School for yourself, because I think you'll be surprised that it depends on the DM, of course. Everything depends on the DM, but you might be surprised there's just as much role-playing opportunity in there as there is in newer versions of the game, and you may be surprised that the danger in actually makes things all that more exciting. And you know what? We always survived on very little bit of hit points. You can survive if you try hard enough. So it's not, it may be scarier, but the chances of your character dying are not actually as bad as you think. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you enjoy this series, please consider subscribing. If you like this, please consider sharing it with others. And I hope to engage with all of you out there about role-playing games. If you have comments, my policy is polite comments, but that does not mean holding things back. You can say whatever you want to say. It's a free world, a free country, you're a free human being. But hopefully, just don't be extra rude about it if you disagree with me. And until next time, I hope you enjoy your games.